Can you believe it's already June? Well, let's talk reading plans for June then, I suppose. Hi guys, welcome back, bienvenue and all that jazz. It's time to talk about some books, or today, plans to read some books. So it's that time of the month, not that time, the time where we talk about what we're going to read in the next, you know what I mean. And as usual, this is not necessarily a strict to be read. It's the books that I hope to get to. Some of them have a higher priority than others because they're either an arc or a couple of them are library books that I need to take back eventually. So let's just dive right in to the one book on this list that I don't own. And this is an arc that I got. And you can blame Jashana for this one. So this is the Final Strife by Saara El-Arifi. And I don't know if she's like a debut author or not, but this is a new fantasy novel coming out in June, on June 23rd. And it sounds like it has cool blood magic, all of those things. So instead of me trying to pretend like I can regurgitate this, I'm just going to read it to you. Scylla dreams of days growing up in the Resistance, being told she would spark a revolution that would free the Empire from the red-blooded ruling class's tyranny. That spark was extinguished the day she watched her family murdered before her eyes. Anura has been told she's nothing, no one, a disappointment by the only person who matters, her mother, the most powerful ruler in the Empire. But when Scylla and Anura meet, a fire burns between them that could consume the kingdom and their hearts. Hassa moves through the world unseen by upper classes, so she knows what it means to be invisible. But invisibility has its uses. It can hide the most dangerous of secrets, secrets that can reignite a revolution. And when she joins forces with Scylla and Anura together, these grains of sand will become a storm. As the Empire begins a set of trials of combat and skill designed to find its new leaders, the stage is set for blood to flow, power to shift, and cities to burn. So, sounds really cool. I know that there's like blood magic stuff going on and like this, I don't remember. But I also do know that like towards the end there, it makes it sound like there's going to be some super epic magical competition. And I know that Jashana said that it's not as drawn out or like prevalent as you might think it to be. So if you're like really in it for the magical competition, you may just be disappointed. And if you're in it for that to just move along and be part of the plot, then you may love it. So just know, be aware. Up next, or up first perhaps, we will not finally, I mean it's only been like a couple months, but we will be concluding our buddy read of The Throne of Glass. So I've been reading this with my friends Ingrid at Ingrid Inspired and Jashana over at Jashana C, and I'll link both of their channels down below, of course. We are currently, as I speak, reading Tower of Dawn, and by we, I mean mainly me, because Jashana refuses to reread it, and Ingrid hasn't started it yet, but we should be concluding our trip through The Throne of Glass. And if you don't know what Throne of Glass is, I'm a little bit confused, but it's basically an epic young adult fantasy series, very rising up against the evil empire, but as we do so, we find out more about the world, and everything is not as it seems. There's lots of twists, turns. If you like kind of intense, teeny, angsty romance, maybe you'll love the romance in here. It's very much like they start with one person and there'll be a new love interest and all of that kind of stuff. But when it gets epic, boy, does it. So we start with our main character, Selena Sardothian, and she is a very high-level assassin in this kingdom, Aderlan. And I would definitely recommend that you start with the prequel novella, so The Assassin's Blade, before jumping into Throne of Glass, because Throne of Glass will reference characters and events that happen in The Assassin's Blade that will have much more impact if you know what they are. And in the Throne of Glass, you don't necessarily see Selena at her best assassinating for reasons. And you do get to see her doing that stuff in The Assassin's Blade. So I think it kind of just makes a better picture overall. And this series has been very fun. Like, I've been thoroughly enjoying this read through of this series. And I would highly recommend it if you like super epic magic systems, if you like that rebelling against the evil empire kind of thing with the rebellion, a ragtag cast of characters, twists, turns, shenanigans, all the cool magic, fire magic, wind magic, ice magic, demon magic, all of the healing magic with light and stuff. So it's just super fun. I would highly recommend it if that sounds interesting to you. I will say the YA part for me of this series is more that the protagonist is rather young, or I guess all of the people that we follow are kind of young. And so they do have those kind of moody, angsty, like staring off at the sunset with a furrowed brow type stuff. So if that's not necessarily your jam, then maybe pass up this series. But if you love that kind of thing, then this is your calling and you should definitely check it out. Then some other series that I plan to continue or complete. I plan to finish my reading of The Chronicle of the Unhewn Throne by Mr. Brian Staveley. This is book 3, The Last Mortal Bond. I'm buddy reading this with my friend over on the Bookstagram, Leigh-Ann over at the Book Chamber. I'll link her Insta down below. This is an epic fantasy trilogy. And book 1, The Emperor's Blades, basically inciting incident is the Emperor has mysteriously died, probably being assassinated. He has 3 children. One of them is trading with these monks that teach all about how to find like this inner silent place where emotions and thoughts cannot touch you. One of them is training to be I think it's a Ketrel, and they are these elite warriors that fight off of these gigantic birds. And the sister is back home being a minister of finance. And so in book 1, everybody hears about the assassination attempt, and it's these 3 characters kind of what happens as they learn about it in the 3 different places in the world that they are, and them trying to get back home to start trying to find out what happened to their father. The flap of that book definitely makes it sound like you're going to be much more involved in the embroiled politics of like what happened, but that is not true. And I will warn you that especially in book 1, it's much less prevalent in book 2. I don't know about book 3 yet, obviously, but they do like to have the bad guys be bad because they threaten sexual assault and sexual violence. And so if that kind of stuff, if you're particularly sensitive to that, maybe skip this series or check out some other like more detailed like content warnings. It doesn't happen on page, but there is like a threat of it that is what makes the bad characters like evil or whatever. I will say that this series, at least towards the end of book 2, we start to see that there's going to be that strong element of the gods among men, like the gods are being directly involved. And there's a lot of like rich lore of things that had happened in this world previously that I'm excited to kind of see where it goes. Book 1, I really was neutral to negative. Like it was like a high 2.75 star or something for me. Book 2 was much better. I think it was like 3.25, 3.5. So I'm hoping that the upward trend continues and that the trilogy goes out with a bang so that I can check out the novella Skullsworn. And then there's a book in a newer trilogy that everybody's obsessed with that I hope to get to if this book continues the upward trend. And if it doesn't, maybe I won't, but we'll see. And then the last series continuation that I'm planning for this month is Age of War. This is book 3 in the Legends of the First Empire by Mr. Michael J. Sullivan. So this is I like to describe it as the prequel of the prequel of the prequel series. So if you read these in publication order, you would read, I think it's Ryuri of Revelations first. It's much more buddy cop fantasy, much more narrower in scope, where we're following Royce and Hadrian on some misadventures or whatever. I haven't read it, so I don't know. And then there's a prequel series to that called the Ryuria Chronicles, maybe? I don't know, but that's still following Royce and Hadrian, but before the events in Ryuria Revelations, but it was published after. And then this series is one of his more recently published series, and it happens thousands of years before the events with Royce and Hadrian. And it is, like it says, it's how the First Empire came to be, that I'm sure that Royce and Hadrian are embroiled in empire politics, and I don't really know what's going on there. But in book 1, Age of Myth, we get introduced to this society where the humans are basically almost in like a tribal era stone age. They don't know how to work with metals really yet. And then there are these elven-like beings known as the Frey who are full of magic, and they basically rule over the humans and keep the humans off their lands. And there are some inciting incidents that happen in that first book where we see that the humans are starting to think about rebelling against the Frey. They used to think that the Frey were these untouchable godlike beings, But in chapter 1 of Age of Myth, a human kills a Frey. And so now they know the Frey are not these godlike beings. And so they obviously are not happy about being relegated to these kind of not so great lands for living on, and so they are starting to rise up. I've read the first 2 books of Age of Myth and Age of Swords, and I look forward to continuing with book 3 in June. Then I would like to continue catching up on the self-pub books that authors have so graciously sent to me. So the first of those that I would like to get to is Paladin Unbound, an Archives of Evelium tale by Jeffrey Speight. And this just sounds like very D&D, very fun, all of that kind of stuff. I'm just going to read the back for you because I don't know as much about it. So, the last of a dying breed, a holy warrior must rise up against a growing darkness in Evelium. The most unlikely of heroes, a lowly itinerant mercenary, Umra the Peacebreaker is shunned by society for his mongrel half-orc blood. Desperate to find work for himself and his band of fighters, Umra agrees to help solve a rash of mysterious disappearances, but uncovers a larger, more insidious plot to overthrow the natural order of Evelium in the process. As Umra journeys into the depths of Telsador's keep to search for the missing people, he confronts an ancient evil and, after suffering a great loss, turns to the god he disavowed for help. Compelled to save the kingdom he loves, can he defeat the enemy while protecting his true identity, or must he risk everything? So it sounds like we're following a half-orc former paladin on a quest to find people. What more do you need to know? It just sounds like a fun little D&D adventure, and I'm here for it. And then the last thing that I'd like to get to, if I have time, if not, I'll read it in July, but that would be The Blood of the Spear, The Eye of Eternity, Book 1 by Mr. Mark Timmony, who is a lovely, self-pubbed Australian author. And I mean, this cover though, like with the, I don't know what he calls it in this world, but just very much reminds me of Dracoliches from Forgotten Realms, Dungeons & Dragons, and I'm here for it. I've heard that this is very much if you like Wheel of Time. He's very influenced. 2 brothers, 1 prophecy, a world in peril. When Kyle loses his chance to become part of the legendary Demon Hunters, joining the Bronze Guard mercenaries seems like the logical alternative. It is an opportunity to put his training to use and, more importantly, as the company is currently in the employ of Prince Alessander, it will allow him to keep an eye on his younger brother, Darian, who's determined to follow his dream of becoming a Seralis magic user. But the broken continent of Athmei still bears the scars of the war between the summoners some 3,000 years ago, and an unexpected battle with a demon, a remnant of that ancient war, reveals the brothers' connection to a forbidden bloodline. Soon, they find themselves on the run from the prince, demonic hordes, and a prophecy that could break the world anew. And I know that he recently, either it just came out or is just about to come out, there's like a novella, I think, set in this world. So if you love this, there is more available, and I know that he's actively working on book 2, so we're here for it. We stand it. It looks awesome. And that concludes I think that's 6 books that I hope to get to in June. If I manage to get to more, awesome. If I don't, or I read something besides this list, we'll see where the wind blows us. So why don't you pop down in the comments down below and let me know, are you reading any of these? Have you read them? Do you have thoughts on any of them? I'd love to chat with you about it. And while you're down there, like usual, you can give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Subscribe if you haven't already to see more of moi. And other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!